Hello, I'm Shoshana. I'm the volunteer coordinator for the Ann Arbor District Library, and today I'm going to show you how to make fruit crisp. If you're like me, you're starting to get a little bit more creative in the kitchen because you can't go out to get other food, which is good. This is a good opportunity to kind of see what you've got hiding in the back of your freezer, and my hope is to show you kind of how not to panic if you don't have the perfect ingredient. We'll make it work. So we're going to make fruit crisp. I have a recipe for you. So this is what we're going to be making. See if you can see it there. I should say that this recipe, according to various websites, says it makes 9 servings. I do not believe that it makes 9 servings. But that said, if you're not cooking for a lot and you don't want to have a huge dessert in your house that you'll eat all at once like some people, I'll show you how we can kind of break that down. So, I have frozen fruit that kind of lurks in my freezer, saving it for a rainy day, or in this case, a quarantine day. So I'm going to go and see what I've got. We have peach berry blend and cherry berry blend. I'm going to go with cherry and berry. Alright, so depends on what you've got. If you've got peaches and blueberries, use those. If you've got blueberries and raspberries or cherries, you can use those. Whatever you got. So basically the ingredients you're going to need are some frozen fruit, and some oatmeal, in this case. If you don't have rolled oats, old-fashioned rolled oats, don't panic. If you have just packets of instant, we can absolutely make that work. We'll kind of try and show you how it's just based on flavors. And the first thing you gotta do is preheat the oven. So I'm gonna turn my oven on to 350. All right, so that is warming up. Although this is made from frozen fruit, it is in fact baked. So I will show you that recipe amount at the end if you are nervous and want to prefer to use exact measurements. But what I'm going to do is, this is about the size dish that they would like you to use, okay? This is 8 by 8, typically calls for 9 by 9. Your main goal is you don't want it super thin so it doesn't burn, and you don't want it overflowing so that it burbles and makes a big mess, because while you have more time to clean the oven right now, just not something you want to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use this. It's a much smaller pan because I don't want a great big crisp. This one will just last for me for a couple days, hopefully. So what I'm going to do is, the recipe calls for 4.5 cups of frozen fruit. I'm actually just going to put it directly in here to kind of measure it out, and then we'll move it into a mixing bowl. Actually, I'm going to move this so that you guys can see the work. Alright. Hi. So I'm going to put a little bit more. Frozen fruit will cook down, so we're going to add a little bit to make sure it doesn't cook down too much. I just have a little bit left. I'm going to throw it in and see what happens. So, and a couple end up on the floor. If you have pets, they'll clean them up for you. If you don't, you have to clean them up yourself. Okay, so I have my amount. I'm actually going to put this in a mixing bowl so that I can mix it with all the sugar and things. So our goal right now is, this is our filling. And the filling is, right now it's fruit, and we want to make it a little bit sweeter, because believe it or not, fruit is not as sweet as we think it is when we are used to adding more sugar to things. But the nice thing is, if you are someone who doesn't like a lot of sugar, this can absolutely be a way for you to judge how much you want to add. So, calls for a 1/4 cup of white sugar. What I recommend, especially when you're halving it, is start with less, and then mix it up and taste it. I will say in this case, if you are adding sugar to the fruit will be pretty good with whatever you add. Again, don't add too much. The topping is kind of where the sweetness lies. This I think a little bit different from a crisp versus a pie. That's okay. All those flavors will get together and it'll be delicious. So we're gonna put some sugar in here. This is a 1/4 cup. I'm probably gonna use a little bit less. I'm just gonna sprinkle it over. And then I did wash my hands before this, so I'm gonna use my hands and just mix it up. Maybe put a little bit more, not too much. Okay, so there we go. So, got our sugared berries. We're also going to, now, this recipe calls for cornstarch. Cornstarch is a great thickening agent. That's what you use to make gravy and things like that. But let's say you don't have cornstarch. Don't worry about it. You can use flour. Basically what you're trying to do is get something to absorb the juices as they start to come out of this so it gets a little bit thicker. So in my case, I'm actually going to use flour. It's a little less lumpy, I find, than cornstarch. Someone else may disagree with me. But I'm just going to use a little bit of flour. So I'm going to just do, again, get a little bit of 1/4 cup and just sprinkle it. Kind of see what happens. Mix it up. And just a little bit more. Not too bad. Okay. So now it looks like this. Basically, you have frozen berries covered in flour and sugar. Again, the flour is going to absorb some of that, that moisture as it comes off. Something that sort of brightens up the flavor of fruit is lemon juice. If you have lemon juice, put a sprinkle in there. If you don't worry about it. I think I might have some, so let me check. Ew! Lemon juice is also a great cleaning agent, so I recommend having some in the house. Remember, not lemonade, lemon juice. I suppose you could try adding a little lemonade. Again, small quantities. This is just going to kind of brighten up the flavor a little bit. There's something about lemon and blueberries that's just so good. Okay, so now that this is getting a little more liquidy, I am going to use a spoon. Gotta mix these guys in. All right, that's your base. So I'm going to pour that back into my container. There we go. Make sure this computer is not falling asleep. All right, so there is my filling. Okay, it's pretty full, so you gotta be careful not to put too much on top. If you ever get overzealous, like me, you can always, I always recommend putting a pan or something underneath if you're worried it's gonna drip. If you're not worried it's gonna drip, don't worry about it. This doesn't have like a rising agent, so it's not gonna come up and over the edge like a cake or muffins or something would. So you don't really need to worry about that. It's mostly just burblage. That's an official word, burblage. It's probably not, don't listen to me. Okay, so we got this. Now, if you're cooking by yourself and you don't like doing a lot of dishes, you can use the same dish, it's fine. I tend to cook and bake on the let's make it taste good versus let's make it gorgeous. And especially if you're cooking for yourself in a house during quarantine, definitely go for flavor. Okay, so topping. We are going to start with some rolled oats. Now, this recipe calls for 1.5 cups of rolled oats. I like a lot of topping because I think it gives it some good crispness. I want to make sure it fits. If I end up with a little too much, I'll save it and I can use it for something else. What I will say is, let's say you don't have rolled oats. That's totally okay. By the way, rolled old-fashioned oats, they just look like this. So we're not going for steel cut. Doesn't zoom very well. We're not going for steel cut. If you have instant, that's totally fine. Let's say you have maybe you have some instant oatmeal that's with apples and cinnamon and that kind of stuff. You can use that. Thing to keep in mind though is it's already pre-sweetened, so you probably don't want to add in any sugar or very little sugar. But the oats are sort of what gives it crisp. Now, let's say you don't have any oatmeal. You don't have any instant, you don't have any rolled, totally fine. A crisp has oatmeal, a crumble does not. You can totally make this without oats. Replace the oats with flour, and the exact measurements, not so sure, but it can be an experiment. Just start with a little and keep adding. So, we got that. Now we're going to add 1 cup of flour. So I'm going to go in with this guy. Okay. And I might not add a whole cup yet. I think I'm just going to kind of mix it together, see what I got. Maybe add a little bit more. There we go. That's okay. All right. Also calls for half a cup of brown sugar. Now remember, I'm doing a little bit of a less here, or a smaller recipe. So I'm going to eyeball it again. If you are not someone who loves eyeballing, it's totally fine. If you kind of want to guess and figure out, like you're using instant, exactly how much is in there, look at the grams on the back. Look at the ingredients or the nutrition facts. My oven is hot enough now. So I think I'm going to put in, we'll start with a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. I'm not going to use a whole serving. I tend to go with a little bit less sugar, which is always good. Less sugar is probably good for you. It is good for you. So we're going to go with that. Kind of mix it up. So I've got my flour, my oats, some sugar. I think I might add a little bit more. Not too bad though. What is nice about this recipe is that it's very easy to make vegan, so you can taste and eat and those kinds of things and not have to worry about it needing to be thoroughly cooked while you're practicing it. Okay, so we got this. So this calls for a little bit of cinnamon. If you've got cinnamon, great. If you don't have cinnamon, totally fine. I do have a little bit of cinnamon. So this calls for 1 teaspoon. Again, if you want to measure, go for it. I'm just going to give it a little bit of sprinkle. One of the things that can be kind of nice is while you're experimenting and doing these things is try different flavors. If you want to use a little bit more cinnamon, you can use that. If you want to see what happens with a little bit less, that's okay. Kind of go. Okay, so now this is going to be very blown out. Okay, so that's what you got. It's got a dry mix. Now, it calls for a stick of butter. You can easily use Earth Balance or some sort of vegan substitute. Totally fine. I recommend you can throw it in the microwave and soften it. I wouldn't recommend liquefying it, just because it helps that it's sticking together. So this is a stick of butter. I'm actually going to cut. You can use a pastry knife too if you guys have these things where it really cuts the butter in. If you don't have one, don't worry about it. I'm going to show you with just a knife. I'm just going to cut off some sections of this in here. I'm just going to do a half a stick and kind of see what happens. So if you want to cut these into more pieces, you can. These are German knife skills. Thanks, Mom. Some people are terrified at the idea of cutting towards your hand. I understand. I probably wouldn't let a small child do this until they've got some practice. But cut it however you feel safest. If you don't want to cut it and just want to start using your hands, that's totally fine. This is a very hands-on experience. So your goal with mixing this up, and again, if you want to use a pastry knife or a spoon, you can. Your goal here is the butter is what's going to make the oats and the flour and the sugar all stick together. So we want those little chunks of butter to kind of break up so you don't see it. So everything looks kind of crumbly, but you can't be like, that's a chunk of butter. While I'm doing this, so one of the perks of making these kinds of desserts is because if you think about this, this has oatmeal, butter, sugar, fruit. I would argue that it could be breakfast, especially if you see how much sugar is in a lot of cereals. So just saying, it could be it's for any meal. I have also noticed that, like, as I've been home and avoiding going out, that when I want a little bit of dessert or something and I don't have it because I don't want to have too much in the house, try making things in different quantities. You might try making this in like a really small dish just to make sure that it's oven safe. And the deeper it is, the more food that's in it, it's going to take longer to cook. But just keep an eye on it. I looked up lots of different things to see, like, what is the safest temperature if you're cooking with frozen fruit. And pretty much everything says get it to burble, which basically means get it to boiling. You can stick a thermometer in there, but if it is burbling from the bottom to the top, you're good. it's going to be safe. All right, so I got this good and mixed up, I think. Another perk of cooking this way, wake up my computer again. Another perk of making desserts like this is it'll make the house smell really good. So if you are dealing with any smells in your house that you don't really love or just kind of want to change the atmosphere a bit, making a dessert can kind of be a fun way to do that. And it's a little treat. So I recommend, like, see what's in your fridge, see what's in your freezer, cupboards, and, you know, maybe plan something out. Look up some recipes. Again, if you don't have everything, it's okay. The goal with butter is to get it to be sticky. If you've got butter substitutes, that's fine. Okay, so got this crumble going. All right, so it's very crumbly. So basically looks like oatmeal at this point, which is totally what I want. You don't want to be big chunks of butter. All right, very important part, the assemblage. Super easy. Take your dish. You will have some recipes that tell you to grease the dish before you put anything in there. I haven't found I really need it because I'm making sure that I don't overbake it. If you're greasing the inside of the dish, it's just to make sure that it's easy for things to come out. With fruit, it's pretty easy to come out. With crisps, it's not like a gorgeous thing that comes out. You can't cut pieces and have it hold its shape. It's amazing with ice cream, let me tell you, because everything's kind of flowing together. Depending on if you're using cornstarch, flour, how much you're using, it might be a little bit more liquidy, a little less. The heat is going to dry some of that off. But again, if it's a little bit more liquidy, it's just more juices to go on the ice cream. All right, so I'm going to put this, and I'm actually going to do it in handfuls to kind of see what happens. Again, I like a lot of crisp on top. Everyone's got their choices. I'm not going to pack this in, and part of the reason I want to sprinkle it is I do want some of the water from the fruit to be able to evaporate and escape out, so I'm not going to like pack it in and make sure that the fruit is stuck in there. All right, I'm going to clear off the edges. I have a little bit left, but you know what? I can save that for later. Make some more crisps. I will say crisps and these kinds of desserts are a great way also to use up if you have those apples that are like you've been avoiding in the fridge. You know, they're not rotten. You don't really want to eat them. Peel them up, throw them in. I will say that apples, peaches, that kind of thing will break down quite a bit. So you want to put a lot of fruit in there. If you ever made an apple pie and you like pile the apples really high, and by the end, when you've baked it down, it's pretty flat. That's why. So use this as an opportunity to use up some of those other sort of local orchard food you have. You got pears, try it. If you've got, again, nectarines or peaches, that kind of thing, I wouldn't recommend citrus unless you feel like experimenting, but I'm going to go with don't try this with oranges. So this is basically done. I'm going to stick this in the oven. I will say that because it is frozen, and so I want to make sure that it cooks through, the top, because it's butter, is going to cook and crisp up faster. So I'm just going to grab some like old foil I have and just put it on top really loosely. I'm not going to pack it down. In fact, I'm going to leave it a little bit tented just so that it doesn't touch. I'm going to put this on and leave it in the oven for 50 minutes, and then for the last 15 I'm going to take the cover off, and that way this can crisp up. Crisp, get it? And then I'm going to take it out of the oven, and that will enable it to cool. And sometimes that cooling is actually, I find, where it sort of starts to congeal and get a little bit more structure to it. Also, that way you don't burn yourself. So what I recommend is when you pull it out of the oven, let it sit, find some ice cream, get it out to soften up, and kind of get yourself ready, but let it sit for a few minutes, one, so you don't burn yourself, and two, so it can kind of get its structure in there. I won't be able to show you a finished crisp because this is not one of those fancy cooking shows where someone else has cooked all the food for me beforehand, but I will enjoy it. I will probably eat some for breakfast tomorrow too, so that's fine. So this is going to go in the oven for 50 minutes. Again, you could put this on a pan. I don't think this is going to boil over, so I'm just going to put this in like this. Put my cover on, nice and loosey. Not burn myself. Wash my off. All right, and that is how you make fruit crisp in quarantine with whatever you got. I'm going to show you that recipe one more time. So if you want to try this out, this is what we are working on today. All right, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to have a very on-brand glass of water. Appreciate you guys watching. We have lots more things coming up on AADL.TV. We're thinking about y'all, so stay healthy, stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you again when we can. Bye.